Today, on 6 Minutes. Since the culmination of the Second World War, every generation of America's youth has smashed social standards and fought to revolutionize every aspect of music, art, government, and civil society. Every generation has successfully managed to define an era with specific cultural behaviors. The latest countercultural revolution, however, exists as such a pointlessly bland and pathetic attempt to challenge the societal norms that it comes off as an entire subculture that is simply going through the motions of transforming American society. In the past, there have been several successful subcultures, such as the Beats of the 50s and the Hippies of the 60s and 70s. These groups influenced the global culture, but today this task has fallen upon a group of people known as hipsters. We have all seen them. They have invaded our cities, our cafes, even our universities. Their insurmountable desire to be unique and avoid any means of conformity results in a hypocritical mess. An entire movement dedicated towards being different has become popular to the degree that involvement with the anti-conformist group has, in effect, become conformist. This inability to create a meaningful cultural impact forms a unique danger to Western civilization. Throughout the second half of the 20th century, American culture has largely defined the culture of the rest of the world. However, the hipster crusade has failed to such a degree that it signifies what may be the end of America's influence over the planet's culture. But just what is a hipster? A hipster is a member of a stylishly disaffected breed of 20-somethings who rejects the mainstream trends or developments in order to achieve the ultimate goal of simply avoiding labels. In other words, the entire movement is based on a desire to be unique. Extensive research, however, reveals a series of characteristics and tendencies common amongst the cultural group. Ironically, the group dedicated to avoiding labels tends to follow a very consistent set of trends and behaviors. This includes, but is not limited to, wearing skinny jeans and big eyeglasses, gathering in tiny enclaves in big cities, and looking down on mainstream fashions and tourists. Other common trends include wearing American Apparel V-neck shirts, drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, and smoking Parliament cigarettes. Your standard hipster listens to underground music and watches independent films. They live in an urban environment and own an Apple computer. Hipsters avoid Starbucks and other corporate conglomerate coffee, smoothie, and frozen yogurt places in an attempt to stick it to big businesses. They prefer less well-known cafes. The stereotypical motto of hipsters is,
"You've probably never heard of it."
This phrase is most frequently used whenever a hipster mentions a restaurant, musical piece, or film of which he or she is particularly fond. However, one of the more bizarre characteristics that is common to the subculture is that they view the term hipster as a derogatory insult, and they vehemently deny any association to the movement, no matter how closely they resemble the aforementioned description. To provide a better understanding of the individual hipster, I have personally filmed one that I met on the University of Georgia campus. As you are about to see, the interviewee followed the hipster description almost exactly. Take note of the Apple computer and Parliament cigarettes, as well as the various fashion trends such as the bizarre accessories, the V-neck shirt, and the Converse shoes. Quite clearly, the interviewee followed the norms of the hipster movement to an astonishing level. You may have noticed that many of the typical trends of the subculture have become quite commonplace in today's society. We have all had our encounters with individuals that obey the hipster fashion styles and social behaviors. Hipsters combine to form a bulky demographic on the University of Georgia campus. The influence of the hipster subculture is quite apparent within this school as well as throughout the entire country. However, this is where the entire movement has utterly failed. As the size and influence of the cultural group continues to grow, the hypocrisy of the social group increases as well. How can a group that prides itself on uniqueness be a successful countercultural movement when the distinctions that originally set the group apart from others are now commonplace practices? The great flaw of the movement is that if it is successful enough to spread and grow, it conflicts with its own teachings. Thus, the movement fails. Likewise, The subculture can only be successful if the membership and influence remain minuscule. The group has effectively trapped itself in a conundrum. This failure of a counterculture revolution signifies a much greater issue, however. It reveals America's diminishing ability to pave the road for the global culture. Past counterculture movements changed the world, whereas hipsterdom is doomed to fail. In a sense, this failure accurately depicts the current decline of Western civilization. Hopefully, the subsequent generation is successful in its attempt to challenge the culture of the rest of the planet and reaffirm America as the trailblazer of the global society. For the time being, the current generation of Americans has failed in this task.